And Zelensky now at open loggerheads. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, it is the biggest story in the world right now. Relations between Ukraine and the United States, and in particular, Zelensky and Trump, are deteriorating rapidly. President Trump now, yesterday, has had enough. After Zelensky has been bad-mouthing Trump in private, in fact, J.D. Vance warned Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference, knock it off. You keep trashing the president, especially behind closed doors, and eventually you do it publicly, it is going to be bad for you, it's going to be bad for your regime, it's going to be bad for Ukraine. Well, that little midget, that little corrupt midget, couldn't help himself. And let me tell you exactly now what is going on, my friends. He wants to stop the peace process. He understands fully well that once there is a peace deal, Zelensky's days in office are finished. And not only are his days in office finished, but then the Ukrainian people are going to launch an investigation into the corruption of him personally and his wife, and of his inner circle and the people close to him and his generals. And they are going to demand justice. Half the money that we sent to Ukraine is gone. Half of the money. $200 billion in military, economic, financial aid has disappeared. A lot of it into the pockets of Zelensky and his cronies, and a lot of it, as you know, in bribery and kickbacks here in Washington with prominent Democrats and Republicans. It is Ukraine has been turned into a massive money laundering operation in which they have been stealing money, and what has also been reported, and the main so-called mainstream media doesn't even want to touch it, many of the weapons that we gave to Ukraine to defend themselves were then taken by the Ukrainians, sold on the international black market. Sold, literally. Ammunition, you name it, tanks, things that were vital to the defense of their country. And they turned around and they sold it on the black market. It went to Syria, it went to Nigeria, and they sold it to the Mexican drug cartels. Our weapons, our money. Trump now is publicly calling Zelensky out. Zelensky now very angry that Vladimir Putin's team, he sent a negotiating team to Saudi Arabia, met with Trump's negotiating team, Marco Rubio, and Steve Witkoff, who's now becoming a special envoy for Trump, as well as National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Zelensky began to openly complain that he is being cut out of any peace talks and any peace deal. What he did not inform the Ukrainian people, and what he did not tell the world, is that Trump first spoke to him before sending his delegation to meet with Putin's people. Last week, before Saudi Arabia, J.D. Vance, the president's vice president, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, met with Zelensky personally at Munich, at the Munich Security Conference, in which they discussed the outlines of a possible deal. So for Zelensky now to claim we've been cut out is a lie. Trump met with his people first, asked them what they needed, what they wanted. Then he met with the Russian delegation, asking them what they need and what they want. Why is he doing this? To all the liberals out there. If you're going to cut a deal, it takes two sides to cut a deal. So you want to know what one side wants, then you want to know what the other side wants. And then, when you feel the moment is right, everybody sits around the table, every single side, and then they hash out a final agreement. But not Little Midget Man. Little Midget Man was already pounding the table. Zelensky was crying. We were cut out. We weren't at the talks. He was yelling, screaming, whining. And then he started to accuse Trump of living in a Russian disinformation space. That Trump was accepting and buying Russian disinformation, that Trump was spreading Russian disinformation. In other words, he was starting to do everything he could to derail the peace process. Trump finally dropped the hammer. First in front of a press conference in Miami, and then in a devastating post on Truth Social. Trump came out and now has openly called Zelensky a quote-unquote corrupt dictator, saying that Zelensky has had $100 billion sent to him that has disappeared. He needs to account for that money. And that Zelensky has not called elections. And as I pointed out yesterday on X, everything that Trump said about Ukraine and about Zelensky is 1,000% accurate. The media is losing its mind. The Europeans are losing their minds. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, is now in open revolt against Trump. Zelensky, the state-run media in Ukraine, are now openly blasting and criticizing Trump. And yet, what they cannot address, because, my friends, the facts are all on Trump's side. Zelensky is a corrupt dictator. He has banned all opposition parties. Every single opposition party is banned in Ukraine, banned at the direction of Midget Man. He has arrested journalists who dare to criticize or expose the corruption of his regime. He has now gone after the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. He has jailed and imprisoned monks and priests in Ukraine. The entire media in Ukraine has been purged of all criticism, all dissent. In fact, he merged the entire media into a state-run media that is completely and utterly under his control. And last year, he declared and imposed martial law. Martial law. He canceled elections. Zelensky has no democratic legitimacy whatsoever. His term, as I pointed out on X, expired last year. Last year. So, of course, this guy's got no democratic mandate. He's got no democratic legitimacy whatsoever. Those aren't Russian, quote-unquote, talking points. This isn't, quote, Russian propaganda. It's the truth. Now, let me tell you Trump's position, because this is being deliberately mischaracterized and deliberately lied about in the media. Trump has told Zelensky directly and the Ukrainian people, if you want to continue this war, go ahead. I'm not going to force you to accept a peace deal if you don't want a peace deal. If you want to continue for this 3-year war to grind on and on and on, if millions of Ukrainians and Russians dead is not enough, if hundreds of thousands of soldiers murdered and maimed, if dozens of cities utterly destroyed, if that's not enough for you, if you think you can still beat the Russians on the battlefield, have at it. Trump has openly said, hey, look, I'm trying to make peace. I'm trying to prevent World War III. I'm trying to prevent even more death and more destruction. But if you in Ukraine and the Ukrainian people feel that you want to continue to fight the Russians, go ahead. I'm not going to stand in your way. The only thing I ask is if we're going to have a peace deal, here's how it's going to go. We're going to have first a ceasefire, so the fighting ends. Then Ukraine should call and must call an election so that the people of Ukraine decide for themselves. Do they want Zelensky to represent them at the final status peace negotiation talks? And what kind of a deal would you like? In other words, let the Ukrainian people choose who will represent them in the final settlement and negotiation talks if they wish to end this war. What is Zelensky afraid of? He's running around touting a poll from an institute that his people control, this Kiev Institute for Sociology, claiming he's got 57% support in the polls. Well, if you've got a 57%, which I don't believe, by the way, okay, and I think Trump is right, how the hell can somebody who's led his country into absolute disaster have a 57% approval rating? I don't believe it for a second. But let that go. Okay, just let it go. If you really have 57% approval rating, then what are you afraid of? Call an election and get a renewed, fresh mandate. He won't call an election because he knows he's going to lose. Trump is now calling Zelensky a fraud. Whose side are you on? 1-7-266-6868. Okay, there is now an open rift, a public row, if you like to call it, between Zelensky now and Trump. It is by far the biggest story in the world. I cannot overstate what a development this is. European capitals are losing their minds. The entire media now is hammering Trump. I mean, hammering him. You've now got Ukraine and Zelensky openly bad-mouthing the president. They now say that Trump is going to cut a deal with Putin behind their backs. Zelensky now says he's being betrayed by Trump and that Trump is now living in a quote-unquote disinformation space, that he is now peddling misinformation, disinformation, and that he is effectively now mouthing Putin's line. Trump now retaliated with fire and fury, saying that Zelensky is a corrupt dictator, a dictator who, without elections, who has stolen money from his own people, who has shattered his country, who never should have allowed this war to happen in the first place, and whose horrible leadership now has nearly destroyed much of Ukraine. And so now relations between Ukraine and the United States are deteriorating and deteriorating fast. Now, what are the implications? If this trend continues, there's going to be no peace deal. That is already starting to slip away, and I think that was Zelensky's intention. He'd rather have this war continue, and more Ukrainians die, and more Russians die, and the bloodletting to continue, than for him to have to hold elections. Because if he holds elections, I'm telling you, he's not going to win. He's not going to win. And on top of all of that, he's going to be held accountable by his own people, because once he's voted out, he's going to be in big trouble. Because the Ukrainian people are going to ask, what happened to all of the money? All of the money. Where did it all go? Where did it all go? And so Midget Man, okay, this corrupt little tin pot dictator, wants now to keep this war going and to derail the peace process. It's pretty obvious. Listen now to Zelensky. This is through a translator saying, you know, I don't want to talk about polls and approval ratings because Trump says he's got low approval ratings. Zelensky says that's not true. But man, I've got great poll numbers. Oh, no one can replace me because look at my poll numbers. Roll cut 6, Mike.
There are many views on what's happening. I never comment on popularity ratings, especially my own or other leaders. It shows that there is some political competition and elections, but we don't have it. I look at this, but I don't comment officially. But since such are the times, we will seize the initiative, I will say that. First of all, we have 58% confidence in me. I have seen this in various opinion surveys. So, if anyone wants to replace me right now, that won't work.
All right, so notice, okay? Notice this little tin pot dictator. So on the one hand, I don't talk about opinion polls. No, I don't talk. But I have 58%. How many surveys? They say 58. So anybody want to challenge me, he's not going to work. Nobody's beating me. So basically, I don't talk opinion polls, but I'm so popular, no one's going to beat me in an election. You're going to challenge me, the boss? Are you kidding me? Now, first of all, the opinion polls, as the media will not tell you, are controlled by him and his party. So those are his own opinion polls. That's number one. Number two, again, not to repeat myself, hey, buddy, 58% approval rating. Here, let's make it 60, okay? You should have no problem calling a snap election. You're going to win in a massive landslide. You've got a fresh new democratic mandate. You can sit down at the negotiating table and tell Putin, hey, I've got 60%. You don't got 60%. I got a fresh democratic mandate. Look at you. So he would be negotiating from a position of strength. What's he afraid of? But there's more. Now he goes after Trump. Roll cut 6A, Mike.
Another story, since we're talking about percentages, we are seeing a lot of disinformation, and it's coming from Russia. We understand this, and we have proof that these figures are being discussed between America and Russia. Unfortunately, President Trump, with all due respect for him as the leader of a nation that we respect greatly, the American people, is living in this disinformation space. And the question is not support for me, but what is important, the ratings we are focused on.
I mean, this guy's unbelievable. Honestly, this guy's unbelievable. So let me get this straight. Trump wants an election before a final peace deal settlement. And suddenly now he's Mr. Misinformation and Disinformation? Remember, this is the same Zelensky that campaigned for Biden against Trump. This is the same Zelensky that has done everything in his power to try to prevent Trump from winning in November. WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Okay, look, we are now at massive loggerheads. Trump and Zelensky now are openly attacking each other, criticizing each other. Ukraine-U.S. relations are now deteriorating quickly. My question to you, the media is attacking Trump, the Democrats are attacking Trump, the Europeans are attacking Trump, saying that by going after Zelensky, Trump has betrayed an ally. He is betraying Ukraine, he is betraying Zelensky, and he is essentially now acting as Putin's poodle. Do you agree? Should Trump be calling out Zelensky and criticizing him for not holding elections, for demanding an election before there's a final peace deal? And who do you side with in this now growing conflict, this diplomatic spat between Zelensky and Trump? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very, very quickly. Trump was asked. The Ukrainians are very upset. They did not have a seat at the table in Riyadh, in the capital of Saudi Arabia, when Trump's negotiating team sat down with Putin's negotiating team. This was Trump's response. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides.
So then the media right away pounces. And by the way, he's completely right. Had Zelensky just said to Biden and the CIA, really, look, Ukraine has really now become, it's a CIA occupied territory. That's what Ukraine really is. It's the playground of the globalists, the oligarchs, and the CIA. And that's all Zelensky ultimately is. He is a tool and a puppet of the CIA and of the globalists who installed him. There's no question. And for, billions of dollars, he'll do their bidding. Now, they're right away saying, oh my God, the fact that you're demanding an election before there's any peace deal? No. You're mouthing the Kremlin's talking points. This is Putin's propaganda. What do you say to that, Mr. President? Listen now to Trump's response. Roll cut 2, Mike.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating. You have leadership, and I like him personally. He's fine. But I don't care about personally. I care about getting the job done. You have leadership now that's allowed a war to go on that should have never even happened, even without the United States.
Europe is going nuts. The media is going nuts. I could play you cuts at Chuck Schumer. I honestly thought the guy's going to get a heart attack yesterday on the Senate floor. He's losing his freaking mind. They're all losing their freaking minds. And my question is, what did Trump say in that comment that's wrong? Like, what is it now? We're not supposed to speak the truth? We're all supposed to play dumb? Slava Ukrainska? Glory to Ukraine? Like, really, is this now the... by the way, remember what they're saying about Zelensky. Remember the propaganda. He's a defender of democracy. He's defending democracy. He's defending freedom. He's defending Europe. He's defending the West. And then they're like, you're not going to actually ask him to hold an election, are you? Well, are we defending democracy or are we not defending democracy? Has he not declared martial law? He has. Has he not banned all political opposition? He has. Has he not wiped out all opposition media? He has. He's not jailing journalists? No. He's not jailing priests and monks? No. No, that suddenly reality's not happening? Did his term not expire last year? So you tell me there is no democracy in Ukraine. It's a dictatorship. Of course it's a dictatorship. And Trump, on the ultimate point, is completely right. It was Zelensky's ineptness, it was Zelensky's incompetence, it was Zelensky's corruption that pushed the final crossing of the red line, which was, yes, in November of 2021. He and Biden said, we're taking Ukraine into NATO. And the Russians said, and this is not a question of Putin, no Russian leader would have accepted this. None. I don't care. Take your pick. Any Russian leader. No one would have said yes to Ukraine in NATO. No, it's a non-starter. And so when the war started in February of 2022, all Zelensky had to say was, you know what? Bad idea. Ukraine's going to remain neutral, like Switzerland, like Austria, like other countries. And we'll go with the EU, we'll go with the West, but militarily we will not join NATO. And the war would have ended right there. This has been Trump's point the whole time. But Zelensky pushed and pushed and pushed. And now his country's been absolutely ravaged and destroyed. One more cut, then I want to go to the phone lines. Listen now to Trump saying we had Biden, who was grossly incompetent, who pushed Ukraine into NATO, or tried to push Ukraine into NATO, and Zelensky, who played him like an absolute fiddle, and now we're on the verge of World War III, millions dead, and all I'm trying to do is clean up the mess. I didn't cause this war. It didn't start under my watch. If anything, Putin has said if Trump was in power, there never would have been the invasion of Ukraine. So quite the opposite. Had I been in power, there would have been no war, no dead, no destruction. And now I'm trying to end this nightmare, and you're all trying to blame me? Roll cut 2A, Mike.
We had a president who was grossly incompetent. He had no idea what he was doing. He said some very stupid things, like going in for portions and all of the things. He made a lot of bad statements, but he's grossly incompetent, and I think everyone knew that. This is something that should have never happened, would have never happened. And I used to discuss it with Putin. President Putin and I would talk about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, I will tell you that. But there was never a chance of him going in. And I told him, you better not go in. Don't go in. Don't go in. And he understood that. He understood it fully. But I'm only interested. I want to see if I can save maybe millions of lives. This could even end up in a World War III. I mean, to be honest with you, you've been hearing now Europe is saying, well, I think we're going to go in and we're going to go. All of a sudden, you're going to end up in World War III over something that should have never happened.
He's completely right. Here, the idiots, the Brits, Keir Starmer, that woke left-wing, I'm sorry, he's a moron, okay? Keir Starmer, that woke leftist, is now talking about sending the British military as the spearhead of peacekeeping forces in Ukraine. The French now are saying they want to send their army as peacekeeping forces into Ukraine. Now, Trump is saying, look, you start putting British troops, French troops, God knows Polish troops, other troops, this could lead to World War III. Over what? Has everybody lost their collective minds? And, of course, Zelensky is encouraging the British, he's encouraging the French, he's encouraging the Poles, because he's the one guy that doesn't want this war to end. So, my question now to you, in this open diplomatic standoff between Zelensky and Trump, who's right, who's wrong? Is Trump betraying our ally by criticizing Zelensky? Is Trump acting now as Putin's agent? Or has Zelensky now crossed a diplomatic red line by openly bad-mouthing and vilifying Trump? Is it now time to end our relationship with Ukraine? In other words, no more money. No more money. If Zelensky wants to fight, and if the Ukrainians want to follow him and continuing to fight, fine. Then you do it on your dime and on your time. But no more money from the United States. And if you guys want to continue fighting, have at it. Have at it. You know, and that's what Trump is saying in private. Trump is telling Zelensky, look, be careful what you wish for. We just may walk away. We need this war like we need a hole in the head. And when we walk away, no money for you. And then you guys are on your own. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who do you think deserves the label dictator more? A, Trump, B, Zelensky. The media, the left, the Democrats are calling Trump a dictator. And they're outraged that Trump has called Zelensky a dictator. So, who do you think deserves the label or the moniker dictator more? A, Trump, B, Zelensky. You know where I stand? Zelensky, the little midget man. To me, when you won't even run for an election and you ban all the political opposition and you've now declared martial law and you've already passed your expiration, your mandate is expired last year and you still won't call an election, yeah, I think that pretty much fits the description of a dictator. Okay? But hey, that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in Nancy ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in National ER. Jim in Tingsboro, you're going to kick us off, Jim. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Jim?
Well, I'm okay. Yeah, Zelensky is definitely the dictator in this case. It's obvious. I mean, you don't have to have a rocket science degree to figure that one out. But this has been going on far too long, and I think Trump should absolutely back out 100%. You know, because they're crazy over there. We know what's going on. I agree with you 100%. Yeah, he's a dictator. No doubt about it.
Jim, what do you make of the fact now that there's been this outpouring of hatred for Trump in Ukraine? Let me just play a cut. I want to get your reaction. This is an ordinary Ukrainian, but it sums up the feelings of many in Ukraine. Now, remember, we've sent them over $200 billion. Okay, $200 billion. A lot of it's stolen, as you know, Jim. Well, Trump has now told Zelensky, we want the money back. The Europeans have given them loans. They expect the money to be repaid. Trump said, and I expect the money to be repaid. Doesn't have to be cash. It can be in rare earth minerals. It can be in natural resources. But whatever it is, for all the money that we sent you, we expect to be repaid. Well, Jim, listen now to what this Ukrainian citizen is telling Trump about Ukraine repaying the $250 billion that we gave them in military and financial aid. Roll cut 18A, Mike.
Это вообще как? Мы что, проиграли Соединенным Штатам войну? Вы вообще кто такие? Что вы от нас-то требуете? Мы вам ни одной копейки не должны, уроды.
Translation, you're acting as if you won the war against us, meaning the Americans. We don't owe you a single cent, you bastards. That's literally what the guy just said. So, I mean, look at these ingrates, Jim. If it wasn't for us, Putin would be sitting in Kiev. Most of Ukraine would be under his complete domination and control. We give them 200 billion plus. And now we're the bastards? Because A, we're gonna stop funding the gravy train, and B, we want to start getting paid back? You know, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like people on welfare. They end up having a sense of entitlement. And this is the aid that we've given to Ukraine. It's created in them a sense of entitlement. That somehow we owe them the money. And like people on welfare, when you cut off the aid, they get angry, they go berserk, and now you're seeing it in Ukraine. Now we're the bastards, Jim. What say you?
I say no way. I say absolutely no way. I mean, we've done everything, you figure everything humanly possible to help that clown out. You know, he's a mental case. It's no different than Iraq, for crying out loud, you know? I mean, come on. We've got to stop playing with these nitwits and these dictators because they only have their sights set on one thing, their own, you know, they don't care about their own people when they go this far. This guy is a whack job. And somebody's gonna pay him off big. And I don't know. I couldn't blame anybody that did it.
Well, he's going to be in trouble. That's why he doesn't want an election. I'm telling you right now. Oh yeah, no, I think he's in big trouble, and I think he knows he's in big trouble. Jim, thank you very much for that call. No, look, this is what Zelensky didn't count on, that Trump was going to win in November. He thought the globalists were going to put in Kamala Harris, and that the gravy train would just keep on going, and that Ukraine would be this CIA-run territory, this a massive CIA globalist operation, where the money goes in, the money gets laundered, everybody gets their cut, and they just keep the gravy train going. And of course, poor ordinary Ukrainians keep on dying. Now, there's a new United States, there's a new regime in town, a new sheriff in town. And now Zelensky doesn't know what to do. So he's got to try to destroy the peace process. It's all now about his power. It's about his power, and it's about now the money that he and his people have stolen. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning. Stream of consciousness. In the last week, this corrupt, half funny ex-comedian called the leader of Russia, Putin, a liar on national TV. I believe that was on the Greta show. And he essentially called our president that at least 78 million people voted for, if not more, dumb, indirectly calling us dumb. So the leader of the two largest nuclear powers, he's insulted both of them. Does that sound like he wants peace? That's number one. And then he said, very carefully, he said, but I respect, in all due respect, and I respect the American people. I'm asking you, Jeff, do you think he respects you and I as taxpayers?
No.
Okay.
Does a crook respect the bank that they keep robbing over and over again? No. No, what he respects is our money. That's all he respects. He wants more of it. And David, look, he's an ingrate. I've said this about this guy. He's crooked. He's a crook. He's an ingrate. And look at the way he's behaving now. Now he's bad-mouthing Trump. Now they're bad-mouthing the American people. Now, all of a sudden, we're all a bunch of bastards? It's worse. I'm just giving you the cleaned-up version. Because we want our money back? It's unbelievable. It's just, I'm telling you, this is, and again, it's like people on welfare. It's the same thing, the same mentality. They think after a while they're entitled to it. And that's how Zelensky's behaving. Like, we owe them hundreds and hundreds of billions. And what? They honestly think we're going to keep, what, another 200 billion? Another 300 billion? Another 400 billion? Another 500 billion? And there's no thank you. There's no, hey, you know what? If it wasn't for you guys, our capital would be, the Russians would be running Kiev. Putin would be dining at the presidential palace in Kiev. There's nothing. It's like, okay, screw you. We milked you for everything we could. Now screw you. Now we're going to milk the Europeans. I mean, David, I don't want to cut you off. I'll give you all the time in the world. But literally, Zelensky now has given a major interview he's already saying, okay, if Trump's going to cut off all the aid from the United States, we want the aid to start flowing from Germany and Poland and Italy and France and Britain and the EU. So in other words, okay, that gravy train, that's going to stop. Let's get on the next gravy train. Now, if the Europeans are stupid and foolish enough to keep funding these kleptocrats, these oligarchs, these shysters in Kiev, and keep this joke of a war going, that's up to them. It's in their backyard. Hey, it's their money. They want to flush it down the toilet, flush it down the toilet. But what Trump is finally telling them is enough. 250 billion is enough. It's enough. It's enough. And you don't want peace? Okay, we'll walk away. No money, nothing. But we'll just walk away and, hey, you want to kill some Ruskies? You want to go after the Russians? Go after the Russians. Who's stopping you? David, what say you?
Jeff, there's so much. I don't want to make light of it, but I'm going to give you a metaphor. I look at him, and he says that, oh, President Trump is falling for disinformation. I look at him, and I see Janet Yellen in sweatpants. Do you remember in the summer of 2021? We don't see inflation. And in the spring of 22, it's transitory. So when you look at Zelensky and he says President Trump is mouthing what Putin would say, when you're talking to Zelensky, you're talking to Adam Schiff, you're talking to Janet Yellen, you're talking to any one of those globalists, and you are listening to them. You are debating with Joe Biden or the people that pulled his strings. You're not debating with an honest person. These are professional liars, Jeff. And maybe I didn't explain it clearly, but if 45 or whatever it is, 50% of our country were told that $100 billion were stolen, and this is the globalists that basically, as you pointed out many, many months ago, they want Russia just like what they did to Ukraine. If people would really understand, I mean, your audience understands, we understood what was going on. This whole thing has been ridiculous, and we've all known it for 3 years, as President Trump said. It never should have happened.
Look, and you know, what to me is absolutely incredible is so many Ukrainians have died. I know Russians have died, no question. Russian troops have died. Russian civilians have died. But the bulk of the war obviously was fought in Ukraine on Ukrainian soil. So many poor peasant Ukrainians have been slaughtered, homeless, refugees, their cities smoldering ruin. And Trump is throwing you a lifeline, saying we can end this and I can give Ukraine peace with honor and a chance to rebuild your country and join the European Union and join the West and make it into a first world country. And this guy is doing everything he can to sabotage the process. This guy is doing everything he can to prevent peace. And the media is siding with this tin pot dictator over the peacemaker Trump. I mean, look, USAID, that's all I have to say. Follow the money. Follow the money. USAID is a front organization for the CIA. It's now been definitively proven. Look at the money they're giving to the media. Look at the money they're giving to all these NGOs. Look at the money they gave to George Soros. $260 million to George Soros. Soros has been one of Ukraine's most public advocates and champions. And all you got to see is all that money that's gone into Ukrainian pockets and into the politicians in Washington. And now you understand nobody wants this war to end. The elites, because there's just too much money to be made. And let more Ukrainians die. Millions more die if need be. It's disgusting. David, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. No, look, if I'm Trump, I'm calling a press conference today, and saying, okay, I've read all the editorials. I'm being attacked on every single front. And I'm being attacked now in every European capital. And Zelensky is now denouncing me, and the Ukrainian people are now denouncing me. So, and now we're all bastards. So now they're denouncing the American people. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm walking away. I'm just going to walk away. No, you're right. Listen, you keep saying now I'm imposing a peace deal. We haven't even discussed anything close to the terms of a deal. But apparently now I'm imposing a peace deal. Okay. I'm going to just walk away. Don't worry. I've got deportations to deal with. I've got the border to deal with. I've got inflation to deal with. I've got the Middle East to deal with. I've got crime to deal with. I've got Congress and these bills that we're trying to get passed. Hey, listen, I've got judges to deal with. I need this now like I need a hole in the head. So I'm going to walk away, wash my hands of the whole thing. Okay? No more money, no more aid. You've gotten your $250 billion. You don't want to pay us back. It's obvious you don't want to pay us back. Okay? And we're bastards because we want the money paid back. Fine. Here's the $250 billion you stole from us. There you have it. Bye. Not a cent more. Not a single red cent. That's it. We're done. I'm walking away. Bye. Bye. And you think the Europeans are going to bail you out? Okay. You think you're going to beat Putin on the battlefield? Okay. That's up to you now. It's your problem. It's not my problem. Honest to God, if I were him, that's exactly what I would do. I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to rescue you. I'm trying to stop the murder and death and destruction of Ukrainians. And you're calling us bastards? Hey, buddy, blank off. You little ingrate. You little POS. That's what he needs to say. And if I'm Trump, look, forget it. You just turn around and say, I tried. I did my best. You guys, no. All of you said it was a sellout. Peace is a sellout. Ending the war is a sellout. Okay. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen. Ukraine is losing the war. They're losing the war. Russia just took 12 more villages and towns in the last week alone. The Ukrainian army is breaking on the Eastern Front. This is what Trump is saying. He goes, guys, you don't understand something. Putin is telling me we're going to win this war. I got all I need now is a couple more months, and we are going to smash Ukraine's defenses completely, all along the Donbass. So if you guys aren't careful, you're going to lose Kiev. You're going to lose Kharkiv. You're going to lose Odessa. You're going to lose your biggest cities. This is going to be a rout, a catastrophe for you. In fact, let me play the cut. Trump is basically telling the Ukrainians, hey, guys, it's up to you. Hey, look, hey, it's your funeral. I'm telling you, you're losing the war. You know you're losing the war. But the territory you've lost now is going to be nothing compared to what you're going to lose in the next 3-4 months if you continue down this insane, senseless road. Listen now to Trump. Roll cut 4A. Mike.
A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, of course it's going in the wrong direction. And by the way, nobody disputes that. Literally nobody. Nobody. On the battlefield, Ukraine is losing the war. Now, the Russians are taking tremendous casualties. It's enormous cost on the Russian side. But they're slowly swallowing and grinding more and more territory. And the question now is, how much longer can the Ukrainians hold out? Because they're taking massive casualties as well. And the difference is Russia has more men. So they just have more manpower. So they can afford to lose more. So all Trump is saying is, look, guys, it's going to be a lot worse. And if you don't sign a peace deal now, you're not going to believe the settlement you're going to have to sign alone with Putin. And Putin is going to be much more ruthless with you than I would ever be. You want to lose your capital? You want to lose your second biggest city? Your third biggest city, forgive me? You want to lose Odessa? You want to lose everything? Okay. Let me tell you what many Ukrainians are already saying. Zelensky would rather rule over ashes than call an election and be kicked out of office and then have his financial crimes and corruption exposed. To the Ukrainian people, wake up. This man is not your leader. This man is your destroyer. He is leading you down the road to ruin and suicide. 617-266-6868. Marilyn in Norwood. Thanks for holding, Marilyn, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
I have a couple of points, and then I'll hang up, and you can respond. First of all, it has been reported in DW, which is a large German news service equivalent to, let us say, like PBS in terms of its educational content, that I'm not sure if this will be removed by the powers that be because they don't want the world to know. But there is a video on that website, 6 or 7 minutes long, that clearly states Ukraine has one of the largest reserves of lithium and other rare earth metals in the world. And so right now, the U.S. and Western Europe and other nations are dependent upon China for 80% of the rare earth minerals and
Marilyn, can you please hang on? I'm up against a hard break. But just to answer that first point, you are completely right. Ukraine has a ton of rare earth resources and minerals like lithium, which is why Trump said you can pay us back in lithium. 266-6868 is the number. Okay, the world is absolutely shocked. The media is reeling. European capitals, whether it's from London to Paris to Rome to Berlin to Warsaw, are now in absolute shock and horror. But Zelensky and Trump are now feuding publicly. Relations between Ukraine and the United States are now falling and deteriorating fast. And now the question is, Trump has called Zelensky a corrupt dictator who needs to hold elections if there is to be a final negotiated peace deal. Do you agree with Trump, or do you think he's now needlessly antagonized Ukraine, Ukrainians, and our ally Zelensky? And the big question, is Zelensky really America's ally? Yes, no, how do you feel about it? 617-266-6868. Let's go right back to Marilyn in Norwood. Marilyn made the excellent point that Ukraine has a lot of rare earth minerals. That's why we're interested in that country. That's why the Europeans are interested. Frankly, it's why George Soros is interested. And lithium in particular. And Trump told Zelensky in a letter a couple days ago, we gave you a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. We'd like to be paid back, and you could pay us back in lithium and in these other rare earth minerals. Zelensky said no. Marilyn, please pick up where we left off.
Hi, Jeff. My other observation is Europe is currently incapable of managing the extremist people in their society from other countries. There's always someone every couple of months driving a car and killing a lot of people in one of those countries, but more often than not, Germany more recently. So are we and President Trump and the American military supposed to believe that these European countries as part of NATO that have been very psychologically neutralized their military, which were once the great militaries of the world, starting with Greece and ancient Rome, that these people now have in them the zeal and focus to combat the Russians. This is all a bunch of nonsense. If they go to war with Russia, the United States will be pulled back into it through the back door. So I think that how President Trump is now handling the situation is correct. He is a dictator. I've read within the past 6 or 8 months that he actually shut down Orthodox churches. That's what a dictator does. And maybe MSNBC should start educating themselves. Instead of calling Trump the dictator, it's actually Zelensky the dictator. But I'm going to hang up now.
Thank you, Marilyn. No, you're completely right. He has shut down Orthodox churches. He has shut down Zelensky. He has shut down Orthodox monasteries. He has arrested monks. He has arrested priests. This has all been well documented. By the way, he's assassinated or ordered the assassination of prominent opposition political leaders in Ukraine, branding them as quote-unquote traitors or collaborators. All opposition parties have been banned. The media in Ukraine is completely state-run. It's all under Zelensky's thumb. And again, he won't call an election. And the excuse is, well, we're in a war. Well, we were in a war in World War II. We had elections. Well, and what are people talking about? We had a civil war, and we had elections. Many countries have elections during a war. That's not an excuse. And then Zelensky, and most Americans don't know this, has declared martial law. The country's under martial law. I mean, that's the epitome of a dictatorship. It's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, what are you people arguing about? So martial law, one-man rule, arbitrary, emergency, dictatorial rule. That's what martial law means. So, and then these idiots in the Wall Street Journal are like, well, Britain didn't call an election during World War II. Is Churchill a dictator now? So what? Churchill banned the BBC? Churchill banned all opposition parties? Churchill jailed people who opposed him or dissented from him? Like, what are you talking about? The Brits had a lot more respect for democratic freedoms during World War II than Ukraine has. Now, look, honestly, in the end, this is none of our business. If the Ukrainians want that kind of a strong man as their leader, that's their problem. But don't ask us to underwrite it, fund it, subsidize it, and plunk hundreds of billions of dollars. And don't lie to us and tell us this is a fight for democracy, when it's obviously not. Now, it's up to the Ukrainians. If they want to continue to fight and die in the Donbass, go ahead. Honestly, what Trump has to say is this. All we're saying is give peace a chance. Okay, like the old 1960s peaceniks. And if you don't want to give peace a chance, fine. We're going to cut off all funding. We're not going to pay for your war. That's it. We have other priorities. We gave you $250 billion with a B. I think we're good. Well, where did the money go? You talk to Zelensky. According to him, he's got sky-high approval ratings. So according to him, you guys love it that he stole all this money. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I'm going to play a cut on the other side. And it's an argument now that Trump is making, and he's making it very, very hard. And it's driving the Democrats and the swamp insane. The media, Europeans. But I want to ask you, is Trump right or is he wrong? Because it has to do with your money, my money, our money. That and your call is the number. Okay. Most Americans don't know this. In fact, I'm telling you, most Europeans and even most Ukrainians don't know this. Listen now to President Trump, because this is going to blow your mind. Roll cut 3 This was Trump in Miami at a major press conference. Roll cut 3, Mike.
Spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed. They get their money back. It's a form of a loan. Nobody knows that. I know that. I said, why isn't somebody saying, we do it the same way? And we spent much more money. We have to equalize. But while the United States gets nothing back, so they get their money back. It's a loan. We just give our money. And we had a deal based on rare earth and things, but they broke that deal. But they broke it 2 days ago. We had a deal because I said, we're spending $350 billion, and Europe gets their money back in the form of a loan, and we don't. We're just giving the money hand over fist. That's the Biden administration for you. But they're no longer dealing with the same United States as they were dealing with a few months ago.
Bingo. Bingo. You're dealing with a different president, a different United States, and a different administration. But most people don't know this. So you want to talk about European hypocrites? They didn't give Ukraine any money. They lent him the money. So the sanctimonious Germans and the French and the Brits and these EU globalist elites, right, you made sure they're going to pay you back. We're the only ones, I'm sorry, I have to say this, stupid enough, gullible enough. You want to talk about Uncle Sucker and not Uncle Sam? We just gave him the money. No strings attached. As Trump said it, no guarantees that we would get it back. So we've given Ukraine hundreds of billions of dollars more than the Europeans have given. The Europeans have given them loans. And then Trump turns around, and he's right. This was just, last week? Earlier this week. My bad. This was just 4 days ago, whatever it was, 3 days ago. And so he went back and forth with Zelensky, and he said, well, look, we've given you over $250 billion. You're going to pay back the Europeans. Can you pay us back in lithium or rare earth minerals or natural resources? Zelensky told him to go fly a kite. In fact, to be honest, what Zelensky said was, no security guarantees, and no rare earth minerals. You want lithium? You have to give us security guarantee. So he wanted to rope us in. In other words, we'll give you the money back, but you got to make sure now you protect us for 1,000 years. And that's when Trump told him, go fly a kite. You're a shyster. You're a shyster. That's what you are. You're a grifter and a shyster. So this is where we stand. So my question is this. How come the Europeans can lend the money to Ukraine, but we have to give the money to Ukraine? And then when we demand that they pay us back, they're calling us bastards? The Europeans are not the bastards? We're the bastards? And by the way, just so that we know, okay, that we, state the obvious, this war is not happening on the Canadian border or the Mexican border. This is in Europe's backyard. You would think that the Europeans would be taking the lead on this. Instead, it's always us. Always us. No. No. So, you don't want to pay us back? That's fine. No more money for you. Cut it off. Cut it all off. Which begs the question, and I want to play this next cut, and then I want to go back to the phone lines. Why were we the only ones? Why were we the only ones? Every other country in the world, it was a loan. Why were we the only ones that gave it away? And I'm not talking 5 billion or 10 billion or 20 billion, over $250 billion. Again, let me stress it to you, $250 billion. That's our country's infrastructure. That's the most secure borders in the world. I'm talking no homeless people in the United States. None. Forget our veterans sleeping on the streets. Not a single American sleeps on the street. Do you know what $250 billion could have bought us if we spent it here? My God. My God. So why would Joe Biden agree to this? And this is now, my friends, the ultimate question. And this is what the media will never touch. And this is what the Europeans will never touch. And this is what the Democrats will never touch. Why would Joe Biden and the Biden regime gift Ukraine, in particular gift Zelensky, $250 billion? I'll tell you why. Because Zelensky, that shyster, okay, that corrupt little tin pot dictator, was blackmailing Joe Biden. Because he had Biden and the Biden crime family over a barrel. He knew exactly what Hunter Biden was doing in Burisma, the bribery, the pay-to-play, the corruption. He knows the accounts. He knows where the money was laundered. He knows how it went not just to Hunter. It went to Joe Biden's brother, Frankie, and Joe Biden's brother, Jimmy, and even to his in-laws, even to his freaking grandchildren. He knows the accounts. He knows the numbers of the accounts. He knows exactly if it's a Swiss bank account or in the Cayman Islands or wherever. He's got all of this information. And so he was extorting the President of the United States. Mr., Russian disinformation. But Trump, I don't understand. He now called for elections in Ukraine. This is Russian disinformation. We fight for democracy. Why should we have to hold elections? Why? Democracy in Ukraine is money laundering. It's not about elections. No, it's about democracy, money laundering. CIA. That's the dirty secret about Ukraine. That's what Zelensky now doesn't want to be. Not just that he stole and man did he steal, and that his generals stole and man did they steal, and that it went back to Washington. But now, because Trump's an innocent man, see, his hands are clean, like Elon Musk. Elon now is blasting Zelensky, pointing out pretty much what I've been saying. This guy, of course he's a dictator. Musk is like, have you seen what this guy has done in Ukraine under his leadership? So Musk's hands are clean. Trump's hands are clean. When your hands are clean, it's easy to speak the truth. Zelensky now fears the fact that he was blackmailing and extorting the President of the United States, Joe Biden, is now going to be thoroughly unmasked, revealed, and exposed. That's why he can't hold an election. That's why he can't have peace. That's why now he's on a public relations offensive to destroy the peace process and destroy relations between himself and Trump. And what Zelensky now wants to do, this little midget, this little grifter, is he now wants to paint Trump as the bad guy. Oh, no, there's no peace deal. Relations between Ukraine and America is so bad because of Donald. Why Donald call me name? Why Donald call me dictator? Why he ask for election? No, he's no good. Okay, that's his shtick. And he's thinking now plan B. Well, hey, I milked the Americans dry. Well, let me see if I can milk the dumb Europeans. How much time left, Mike? Roll cut 3A, please.
Why didn't crooked Joe Biden demand equalization, and that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us, and that there's a very big, beautiful ocean, a separation? This is, we're helping Europe. We're trying to help Europe. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money that we sent them is missing. They don't know where the money is. He said, well, we don't know where half of it is. That's great. Wonderful.
Look, just cut it all off, man. Donald, you are Mr. President Trump. you are 1,000% correct on this. Okay? It's time somebody put Zelensky in his place. Agree? 748 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me throw this log on the fire and ask all of you, the great audience of Kuhner Country, now that there's clearly an open split and a serious now decline in relations between the United States and Ukraine, and especially Trump and Zelensky. I mean, it's open feuding now. Should Trump still try to hammer out a peace deal to end the war in Ukraine, end the slaughter, and end the potential for World War III? Or should he just walk away? No more money to Ukraine, not a penny more. Don't fund any more of the killing. Don't fund any more of the dying. Don't fund any more of the war. And just walk away and say, look, I tried. Ukraine said no. Zelensky said no. And if Putin wants to go and finish this war off, let him. If Ukraine thinks they can beat him on the battlefield, let him. But my hands are clean, and I walk away. Wash my hands of the whole thing. Should Trump just walk away, or should he continue to try for a negotiated final peace settlement? 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Bill in Sudbury. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Jeff.
Bill, we haven't heard from you in a long time, my friend. Nice to hear from you.
It's very hard to get through now, Jeff. You're a big star, a wicked big star. So let's just talk about the price of the Ukraine war for a minute. Let's put aside the right and the wrong and all of that. Let's just talk about the price. So the American military budget is $842 billion per year. So tell me why that's how much we're prepared to spend to thwart the Russians. The Ukrainians are doing it for us for a mere $250 billion. Tell me why that's not a great deal for us. And by the way, most of that $250 billion goes to Raytheon and McDonnell Douglas and whoever makes all these rockets. We clean out a bunch of warehouses and stuff, and we get all new stuff, and people take that stuff home in their paychecks. So tell me why having the Ukrainians thwart the Russians for us for 5% of what we were prepared to spend isn't a great deal for us.
Okay, well, I mean, Bill, there's so many flaws in your argument. Number one, we don't spend $842 billion on a defense budget to thwart Russia. Your whole premise is flawed. The Cold War let me finish. The Cold War is over. I think you should know that. The Soviet Union fell apart in 1991. We are not in a Cold War with Russia. Russia is not the mortal enemy of the United States. If there's any country that is the mortal enemy of the United States, it's China. Russia cannot displace the United States as the world's next superpower. China can. Russia is not stealing all our jobs. China is. Russia's not stealing our manufacturing. China is. They're not stealing all of our intellectual property and technology. China is. Russia is not engaged in the world's greatest military buildup. China is. Russia is a population of, 130 million and declining. China is a population of 1.5 billion. So you got your priorities all wrong. So that's number one. Number two, $250 billion is a ton of money. It's a ton of money. To show you how much money it is, the Russian military budget is $70 billion. That's their yearly budget. So we have sent Ukraine 4 times the yearly budget of Russia. And now we find out according to Zelensky himself, half of that money has been stolen. Half stolen. Now, if you pay taxes, Bill, you would give a damn. The American taxpayer was swindled and his money was stolen by that corrupt regime in Kiev. On top of that, the military aid that we sent them, about half of that was then sold on the black market. So the weapons that we gave them, and by the way, you're going on about, Raytheon and McDonnell Douglas, and our military stockpile has been completely depleted. There was a massive damning report. All of the weapons that we sent to Ukraine under Biden, our military now is depleted. Our military now cannot fight a major war. So we're going to have to spend trillions of dollars to replenish our military. Okay? But let that go, Bill. Let that go. The money, the aid that we sent to Ukraine, half of it was sold on the black market. It was sold in Syria. It was sold in Nigeria. They even sold it to the Mexican drug cartels. So, and the final point, what is it in the American national interest? Which flag flies over the Donbass? You couldn't find the Donbass on a map. You can't even name me the 4 regions in eastern Ukraine that the Ukrainians and the Russians are fighting over. Land that was part of the Russian Empire for over 1,000 years. Now, if Ukraine and Russia want to destroy each other over borderlands, that's their problem. That's not our problem. Since when did this become our problem? I'll tell you when it became our problem, Bill. When the guy that you said was going to win the election in 2024, but was so freaking senile, he couldn't make it past the CNN debate. That buffoon and clown that you defended for 4 years. He made the Ukraine war our war. And he made it our war because he and his son and his crime family were up to their eyeballs in corruption, in bribery, and in kickbacks. That's why it became our war. So the long answer to your question is, Ukraine is not worth a red cent of American taxpayer money. It is not worth the bones of a single American or European soldier. This is between Russia and Ukraine. We've got much more important fish to fry. We've got much more important problems, like our southern border to begin with. That's the answer to your question, Bill. Bill?
So what percentage of the $842 billion do you think we were prepared to spend to thwart the Russians in 1 year? The other thing is,
again, I just told you the Cold War is over. It has been over for 35 years. Get the memo. So the $842 billion is not to fight the Russians. It's a lie. It's to protect the homeland, fund our military, and protect what we need is in terms of our national interest. And I hate to tell you this, but China is a much bigger threat to the United States than Russia. But you don't answer the fundamental question. What is it of our concern? Which country's flag flies over the Donbass? Give me an answer to that question. Why is it worth a single dollar, American taxpayer dollar? Explain that to me.
5% or 6% of what we were prepared to spend. They're doing it for us for a 5% of the price.
You're like,
that's
again,
a very good deal for us.
To keep repeating yourself like a tape doesn't make your argument true. I just asked you a basic question. Forget your 5% or your 6% or your 10%. I'm talking about $1. $1. Just $1. What is it worth for us to send $1? How is it in our interests? Which flag flies over the Donbass? Go ahead, tell me.
You have opposed Russia for the past 90 years. You want me to tell you that now in 3 sentences?
Who's opposed Russia? Hold on. Who's opposed Russia for 90 years? What are you talking about?
By the way, Russia bombed Ukraine every single day of Trump's first term. So when he says it wouldn't have happened if I was president, he's lying.
Okay, so you won't answer the other parts that I mentioned. Now you're making up something. Just for your information, under Trump's first term, the only country that was bombing, whoever was bombing who, were Ukrainian paramilitaries who were bombarding Donetsk and Luhansk for 3 years. It was Ukrainians who were bombing ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. If there was any bombardment whatsoever. Now, between 2017 and 2021, Russia did not take a single inch of Ukrainian territory. That's a fact. Now, Putin further said, you can look it up, that had Trump been in power in February of 2022, there would have been no invasion of Ukraine. So, we had peace with Russia under Trump. Under your guy, we're on the verge of World War III. And Trump is trying to end all the killing and all the dying. But notice, Bill, again, you keep giving me phantom arguments. I asked you before, I asked you twice, I'm going to ask you the third time, and that's it. I don't want to waste any more of the audience's time. What is the national interest of the United States over which flag flies over the Donbass? Tell me, what's our national interest? Why should we spend a single red cent? Go.
He's going to dip his toe in the water, and then when it blows up in his face, he's going to say, oh, no, I had nothing to do with it.
Okay, all right, thanks, Bill. Okay, Bill, you won't answer the question, and you're ranting and raving about Trump. See, and this is my point. When you debate a liberal, look, they sound like raving lunatics. They just throw out one line of attack, then you easily destroy it, then they move on to another line of attack, and then you easily destroy it, and then they just start ranting and raving against Trump. So, Bill, you want millions of people to continue to die? Listen, Bill, let me ask you this. Okay, let's end it like this. If you love Ukraine so much, and you think that Zaporizhia is such an important part for us to defend, that the fate of Western civilization hangs in the balance, Bill, it's no problem. They're taking foreign mercenaries, Bill. Ukraine wants foreign fighters. They need anybody they can get. Why don't you pick up a gun and go fight in Ukraine, Bill? Nobody's stopping you.
The thing we ever did before he came down the golden escalator was wrong. Everybody but you is corrupt. You say the same thing about Ukraine as you say about America. Everybody's corrupt. And if you're not corrupt...
Well, look at Doge. Done. I mean, yeah, Bill, look at Doge. It's pretty overwhelming. By the way, the Government Accountability Office is now admitting hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars have been misspent, waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, Bill, honestly, this is your second time this year you've called. The first time was pathetic. The second time, it's even worse. I mean, you're starting to sound like an unhinged lunatic. Really, Bill, honestly. Is this what you Dems have become now? All you do is yell, scream, shout, and are completely and utterly irrational? You can't handle one point? You can't stick to one line of argument? So, you see, now they can't defend Zelensky because the game is up. It's not a democracy. He knows it. It's a money laundering operation. He knows it. The war is senseless. Everybody knows it. So now he went down the escalator. Everybody's corrupt. He's putting his toe in the water. I mean, it's just now they sound like madmen. So that's what it's become now with these left-wing lunatics. Speaking of left-wing lunatics, here's Schumer. He sounds like Bill in Sudbury. So this is Schumer. He's losing his mind over Trump telling Zelensky that by pushing Ukraine into NATO essentially Ukraine provoked the war. Schumer now, I thought he was going to get a conniption. I thought this is it. He's going to drop dead of a heart attack. Roll cut 15, Mike.
On Trump and Ukraine. In a Fox interview released last night, President Trump spoke about the war in Ukraine. And some of his comments sounded straight from a Russian propaganda playbook. Rather than speak the truth, rather than acknowledge Vladimir Putin's role in starting this war, President Trump amazingly blamed Ukraine for Putin's invasion. To quote the president, "You should never have started it," he said. He was saying that to President Zelensky. This is disgusting. Disgusting after how this man has fought so hard and so valiantly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He fought. Yeah, I know. Tell me, what battlefield did he lead? Chucky. Now, see, now they're trying to claim that Zelensky's a general. Like that's the new propaganda line coming out. You know, he was Churchill before. Now he's Eisenhower. He's MacArthur. My God, look at him. My God. He's fighting Putin's armies almost single-handedly. Yeah. What division did he lead? Tell me, what battlefront did he lead? Because if you want to get into the weeds, just so that everybody knows, if there is an election in Ukraine, Zelensky's going to get destroyed. And you want to know who's going to beat him? It's Ukraine's former top general. His last name is Zaluzhny. He's about 6'6", 6'7". He had a beard. I don't know if he still has one, but he's got a beard. He's a giant Slavic Ukrainian. All right. When you think about a stereotypical Ukrainian Slav, he's big. He's strong. And he's a patriot. He's a true Ukrainian patriot. Zaluzhny told Zelensky last year, don't launch a massive counter-offensive against the Russians in eastern Ukraine. They are so well fortified and entrenched, it will destroy the Ukrainian army. Don't do it. You're going to go right into the teeth of the Ukrainian meat grinder. Well, no. Little midget man being pushed on by Joey because Biden wanted a big victory in Ukraine, and being pushed on by the CIA and by the EU. He was overruled by little midget man. And so in the summer of last year, Ukraine launched a massive sweeping counteroffensive. And what do you think happened? Zaluzhny proved absolutely prophetic. The Ukrainian army, the cream of the Ukrainian army, was destroyed, wiped out, slaughtered by the Russians. And in fact, that's why Ukraine has never recovered. And that's why they've been relentlessly losing ground ever since. Now, the Ukrainian people know that. They know what a loser Zelensky is. Zaluzhny is going to run. Zaluzhny is going to kill him in the election. And Zaluzhny has also said he wants to trace the money. Remember, Zaluzhny is a patriot and a real general. And he's saying, my boys didn't have enough bullets. My boys didn't have enough artillery shells. My boys were outmanned and outgunned. And $102 billion that America sent us is gone? You know how many Ukrainian lives that could have saved? Do you know how many Russians we could have killed with that? Zaluzhny has vowed to do a thorough audit and track down the money. Here's my prediction. Zelensky holds an election. That crook, that shyster, he's going to lose, and he and his corrupt wife are going to have to flee the country. Because I'm telling you, the Ukrainians are going to hang him. They're going to hang him. 617-266-6868. Either his own people will kill him, or the Russians will kill him. But Zelensky is dead man walking. And that's why now he's doing everything he can to try to disrupt and derail the peace process. That's who Zelensky really is. 617-266-6868. And now, as Paul Harvey would say, you know the rest of the story. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff, and don't go so hard on Bill. He's out on pre-release. I'm sure they'll find the keys to get him back to the asylum. But seriously speaking, the Ukrainians threw up the white flag in 1994 when they gave up their nuclear arsenal to the Russians. Had they had those new missiles in place 3 years ago, aimed on Moscow, this war would have never started. It just goes to show how a good defense can save a country. You asked the question, well, what should Trump do? In light of the circumstances, as one of your previous callers said, whether it's German news, the BBC, French news, they all hate Donald Trump, and they continue on a daily basis to bang him, that he is wrong. We haven't had a place at the table. You have to understand they're not just giving these people weapons. They're selling the Ukrainians weapons, making billions and billions of dollars. And the leader of this march on war is Macron. He wants to continue this war, and I believe the European Union does as well. They're making money here, and Zelensky wants this to continue. If President Trump could tomorrow end this war in an equitable way, they would say that he gave everything to Putin. Again, Putin. He cannot win here. Donald Trump cannot win here if he ends this war tomorrow. What I would suggest, what I would do if I was in his place right now, I would call up Marco Rubio and I would say, Marco, pack your bags, you're coming home. I would notify every leader of the European Union and say, you want your seat at the table? You can have all of the seats on the table, because the people of the United States are going to respectfully step back and allow you to negotiate a peace treaty. Then he should say to Zelensky, you have 10 days to come up with, and let the American people, we bastards, where the $100 billion disappeared. And finally, to Chancellor Schultz in Germany, another Trump hater, remove the 35,000 American troops that have been stationed there since the Second World War. And they're all worried. I watch it every night, these international news stations. They're all worried if the United States backs down, they're not going to be able to handle this. Well, let them negotiate it. Just let them negotiate it, Jeff. That's what I would say. Because the way things are going now, Donald Trump cannot win in any situation here through any peace negotiations with Zelensky and Putin. It just,
CJ,
it can't be done.
Don't get me wrong. I only have eyes for my wife, CJ. But I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. You are 1,000% correct. I'm telling you, best audience in the freaking business. You're right. For Trump now, this is a no-win situation. If he makes peace, he's going to be denounced as having appeased and sold out to Putin. If he doesn't make peace, they're going to say, you see, you failed. What he should do is exactly, Trump's people are listening. Please listen to CJ. Walk away. Just walk away and tell the Europeans it's now your problem. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want you to listen now to Volodymyr Zelensky, little midget man. This is an interview with British media. Now, that's the other thing with him. When he wants to speak English, he can speak English. And in this case, he's worried he wants another $250 billion. And as you know, that's pretty much what we gave him. And Trump is saying no more. Trump, in fact, is saying, I want you to start paying us back. And that's when Zelensky told him, no security guarantee, we give you nothing. So basically, Zelensky told him to fly a kite. So now he's wondering, I got to keep this war going for at least a couple more years. Where am I going to get the $250 billion? Aha! Maybe the Europeans, the socialists in Europe, the globalists, maybe the Europeans will give it to me. Roll cut 8, Mike.
American money, good. Give us 250 billions, which are here in Europe, frozen Russian assets. No answer.
Because I don't think the Europeans are that stupid. Here, let me play it again, because it's a little garbled at the beginning. What he explicitly says is, this is what he says: if the U.S. won't give us 250 billions, then maybe Europe from frozen Russian assets. No answer. No answer. Play it again, Mike. Roll cut 8.
American money, good. Give us 250 billions, which are here in Europe, frozen Russian assets. No answer.
Because that is thievery. It's just, it is they are Russian assets. I mean, you're technically stealing from the Russian state. I'm just saying. And look, the Europeans aren't dumb. Nobody's dumb. Everybody's playing dumb, but nobody's dumb. They know another 250 billion, maybe 50, maybe 75 billion will make its way to weapons and the front and to the Ukrainian people. The rest, it's gone. Oh, is it gone? So Zelensky clearly now has shown his cards. He wants to keep fighting to the last Ukrainian. 617-266-6868. Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome.
Hey, Bill in Sudbury.
Well, Bruce, I'm getting a lot of texts and a lot of people on Messenger saying they think now that Bill really could be artificial intelligence. Now I'm serious. They say, Jeff, until we see a picture of you with him and him holding his ID, they're starting to think now he's fake. Because honestly, I don't think anybody can be that stupid. But anyway, go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty funny. I used to think that you hired somebody that was that good of an actor. There was a lot of controversy back in the day when he started coming on. They were like, no, this has got to be a joke. This is no joke. But anyways, it's oh, man, I don't know who's worse. Anyways, Zelensky reminds me of Napoleon. Cross between Mussolini and Napoleon. They were both thieves, and Zelensky's and our people, whoever we're going after, and they all know who they are. Well, they think that we're stupid enough. We're going to give them frozen Russian assets to this little puke. And what would that would really piss Russia off with us, and we got a good rapport with them. We're not worried about us getting shot by any missiles from Russia. All I can say is we're in a bad place, and I back our guy 100%. And yes, we should walk away. We don't have any business there. And you watch when we walk away, Jeff, they'll all cry, "Oh, wait a minute! Come back! Come back! Come back! Come back to the party!" Oh, yeah, big party we're having, Jeff. Screw them. God bless America. Fight, fight, fight. And we need this like a hole in the head, you said, Jeff. Well, we already got one of them. We ain't taking any more crap from you sons. I can't say it on the radio. I love you, man.
No, I hear you. No, look, thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it. No, look, I think you're right. I think the American people are done. I mean, we're sick of sending all this money to Ukraine. And then look at the ingrates. Look how they treat us. And look, again, look what a kleptomaniac this guy is. We need another 250 billion. Okay, you give to us now. If America don't give, you give. Well, I mean, sir, how much money do you think we're going to dump into that corrupt hellhole that's Ukraine? Like, seriously, huh? You think the whole, we're going to toss in trillions of dollars? And then when you cut off the money spigot, all of a sudden we're all bastards? Nah, I'm done. I think the country's done. Look, I'm telling you, if Trump wants to go for another attempt at this, fine. I think the American people do want this war to end. They want to see the dying and the destruction over. But I'm telling you, he's going to get a massive round of applause if he today said, okay, I tried. All right, bye. Let the Europeans take care of this. Europe cannot deliver peace in Ukraine. So if Ukraine wants to fight Russia to the death, go ahead. It's Ukraine's funeral. Your calls. No, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 802. Jeff. Bill in Sudbury is actually not AI, but ALI. Artificial lack of intelligence. Well, today's call in particular, holy mackerel. Look, their God, and Zelensky's been deified by the media, deified by the elites, deified by the Democrats and by the globalists. Their God is now burning to the ground. That's what Trump has now done to him. He's thoroughly now lashed him. He's unmasked him. He's exposed him. And I think Zelensky's going to rue the day. I think he's made a huge mistake alienating not just Trump, but alienating the United States. And you would think after all the money we gave him, he'd be a little smarter, a little cagier, a little more clever. But no, he's now calling Trump an agent of disinformation. He is now attacking Trump, saying that he wants to cut a deal with Putin behind Ukraine's back and sell Ukraine down the river, which is a complete lie. Trump has now responded in kind, and I want you to listen now to Trump. This was him in Miami. Roll cut 4, Mike.
He refuses to have elections, is low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh, no, his polls are good. Give me a break. Every city is being demolished. They look like a demolition site, every single one of them. And the only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use, yes, sir, to say that he's pretty easy, pretty easy.
Well, it's true. He did play Biden like a fiddle. And that's why we were the only country that gave Ukraine over $200 billion, while the Europeans, the Canadians, the Japanese lent them the money. They had loan guarantees. We just flushed it down the toilet. Now, listen to Trump, because this is where he dropped the hammer. Zelensky is a dictator, pure and simple. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast, because that war's going in the wrong direction.
He's completely right. Ukraine is losing this war, and the facts on the ground don't lie. So he's now alienated the United States. He's bitten the hand that feeds him. His war is going bad. His generals now are going to start to turn on him. And now he's petrified that Trump is calling his bluff and saying, okay, call an election. If you're as popular as you claim you are, call an election. We want to renew your Democratic mandate before we get to any final peace deal settlement. Zelensky now is balking, obviously, because he knows he's going down. So my question to you, really, it's a double-barreled question. What do you make now of this open rift, this open conflict between Zelensky and Trump? As I said, it's the biggest story in the world. The Democrats are enraged. The media is going berserk. The Europeans are shocked and horrified. And what they're now claiming is that Trump has stabbed our ally, Ukraine, Zelensky in particular, in the back. Did Trump make a fatal diplomatic mistake? And is Ukraine and is Zelensky really our ally? Or have they just been using us like parasites? And now, when we say the money is over, they call us bastards. 617-266-6868 is the number. And the second question, what should Trump now do? Should he continue to try for peace and get a peace deal? Is he right to be asking Zelensky to call an election? Or should he just walk away? Say no more funding, no more money. We're not involved in this war in any way, shape, or form. If Europe wants to deal with it or fund it or subsidize it, that's up to them. If Ukraine wants to continue to fight, that's up to them. But we're out, I'm out. Should Trump just wash his hands and walk away? 617-266-6868. We are now, as they say, at the crossroads. Where should Trump go? Where should America go? Chris in Winchendon. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
For elucidating me, for educating me on some matters you brought forward. I played a very minor role in the nuclear missile submarine force, as well as in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I was on a maritime anti-submarine ship as well. I think that the people that have been stabbed in the back are the American citizens, the Cold War military that have served to keep us from going into a Holocaust, and the Russian civilians and soldiers, too. In the Maidan, our country inserted itself in the affairs of a sovereign nation, and which resulted in the overturning of a democratically elected government. And the people in the Donbass and the Russians...
Chris, if you don't mind, because obviously you're an educated man and a very informed man, but just some people, when you say Maidan, they don't know what you mean. So what Chris is referring to is the coup that took place in 2014 in Ukraine, that clearly now this has been publicly exposed, that was supported not just by Obama and Biden, but by Victoria Nuland, by John McCain and Lindsey Graham. It was backed by our CIA, in which we overthrew a democratically elected, it was pro-Russian, it was the regime of Yanukovych, but it was democratically elected. And we overthrew that regime. And that's when Putin then moved in his forces to Crimea and took a couple slices of eastern Ukraine. So what Chris is referring to is that initial coup in 2014. Chris, please, you're on a roll. Keep going.
And thank you for bringing that out. And these people in the eastern Donbass, these Russian speaking people, were shelled and murdered, and they couldn't even bury their dead properly. They buried them in yards of schools and homes. They lived in their basements, and the news media never told us about this. Now, when I served in the submarine force, we did missile drills targeting Russian cities. And, you know, this is something that the Soviets did too, you know, but we served knowing that our country, and I'm proud of my service. It was a very minor role, but the thing is that we served to prevent war. And I didn't take an oath of allegiance to NATO. I took an oath of allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, and I'm satisfied that I did my best. But, the Nazi Azimuths and the that are in Zelensky's purview, and the shelling of the Russian-speaking people who asked Russia for help because they were losing their lives. Their lives have a measured value too, and I see that all this is going awry, and NATO is willing to get us into the war, World War III, and I see things going very badly. So I just want to thank you for bringing out these points, and I want people to live in peace. I don't want this Cold War to become a hot war. I feel there's a betrayal of all of us, and that's pretty much all I have to say. I want to thank you for educating me. I
completely agree with you, and I just want to add to what you're saying, which is, to me, I think the big point. The stab in the back. This is now, they keep using this now. Trump stabbed Zelensky in the back, or he stabbed Ukraine in the back. The only people that got stabbed in the back was you and me and the American taxpayer. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just a fact. Again, not to belabor the point, the Europeans are getting paid back. So their taxpayers are going to be covered. We were the only ones who sent over $200 billion free. No strings attached. We gifted it to Ukraine. And as you know, half of it was stolen. At least half. So who got stabbed in the back? You, me, and every single American taxpayer. And Trump is finally defending our interests. And Chris, I want to raise a larger issue. How much time left, Mike? Okay, 40 seconds. I'm going to ask the audience. Chris, thank you very much for that call. In all seriousness, is it now time to consider leaving NATO? Just altogether. Let's just leave NATO. You're going to say, well, Jeff, whoa, Jeff, whoa, hey, you're kind of getting ahead of your skis there. You're kind of jumping the gun. I want to read to you a text message that I got from obviously a brilliant listener. And I don't know if I can disagree with him. And I want to get your take. So I've got that, your calls, I promise. Don't touch that 9 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, before I read the text on NATO, this is from my sister, Jennifer, out in Arizona. She actually lived in Florida, by the way, her and her husband and her 2 wonderful children, my 2 nephews, for years. So she knows Florida quite well, even though now she's in Tucson, Arizona. Here's what she texted me about, 7 minutes ago. Jeff, I'm just wondering, why does Zelensky have property in Sunny Isles, Florida, where all the rich Russian oligarchs are? That's interesting. That's interesting, Jen. And how did he afford it, huh? All on a president's salary. Wow. Jeez, I guess they paid their presidents really well in Ukraine. Okay. Let me ask all of you. Trump is not saying this. Trump is not suggesting this. I am. I got this text, and I have to tell you, the logic is inexorable. So let me read it, and I want to get your take. And it's from 781. Jeff, the United States spent 100 years defending Europe. World War I, World War II, the entire Cold War, and all the way up to this day. Trillions have been squandered. Trillions, Jeff. Countless American dead. And the very first time we refused to fight or fund their war in Ukraine, now they treat us like an enemy. You know how people on welfare often become entitled? Yeah, that's Europe. Ungrateful freeloaders. It's time to leave NATO. I can't argue. I can't argue with 781. Did we not defend them and save them in World War I? Yes. Did we not do it again in World War II? Yes. Did we not do it a third time during the Cold War? Yes. Have we not been protecting them now ever since the Cold War ended? For the last, 35 some years? Yes. Did we not give Ukraine over $200 billion? We gave it to them, no loans, a gift. And then when we finally say enough is enough, do they say thank you? And I'm not even talking about the Ukrainians now. I'm talking about the Europeans who are losing their minds over Trump criticizing Zelensky and saying we're not going to give you any more money. So, they feel they're entitled. That they constantly freeload. They're a bunch of freeloaders. And I'm sorry, 781 is dead right. It's exactly the mentality of people on welfare. People on welfare never say thank you. They're not grateful. It's more, and give me more, and give me more. They're entitled. They expect. You owe it to me. I don't owe you a thing. What do I owe you? And we've been protecting them under NATO since 1949. The Cold War is over. Remember, NATO was created to defeat the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is gone. It disintegrated 35 years ago. Why are we, A, why is there still NATO? But B, why are we still in NATO? And let's be candid. We don't need the Europeans when it comes to military security. They need us. Now, to be fair, the only country that upholds its NATO spending obligations is Poland. In fact, they don't just do 3%, they do 5%. So to be fair, Poland is the only one that's honorable when it comes to spending and military. And there's a handful of other countries that meet the bare, 3% or 2%. But most Europeans spend a pittance on their military because they'd rather spend it on welfare or their lavish social programs or take, 5-week vacations. Now, I want you to listen, because this is not just 781 that's saying this. This is commonly acknowledged. I want you to listen now. This is the former NATO former NATO general, Sir Richard Sheriff, on the BBC, and he says, look, the Europeans now have only themselves to blame. They're impotent in front of Russia. They can't bring peace to Ukraine. Why? Because they've been freeloading off the United States for 50 years. Roll cut 16, Mike.
Why would Russia take that seriously?
It will only take it seriously if it is strong, if it is capable.
It can't be strong without the US, though, can it?
It cannot be as strong without the US. And this is where Europe, and I appreciate all this sounds like cloud cuckoo land, but Europe have got to say, right, we've got to start somewhere now. We, through our failure to spend more on defense, our willingness to freeload off American largesse for the last umpteen decades, have now got to dig deep. Because we've now got to replace the capabilities that America brought to the alliance. Now, that is one massive ask. Of course it is. And the only way that the alliance will continue to be respected is through a demonstration by Europe that it's prepared to do so.
No, they're not. I'm telling you, the Europeans are not willing to die for Ukraine. This is a liberal fantasy. The Europeans aren't even willing to spend a little more on their militaries and their defense budgets to help Ukraine. I'm telling you, they're not. So it's either Uncle Sam or the Ukrainians are on their own. And Trump is now basically telling the Ukrainians, you're on your own. 617-266-6868. So let me throw this on the table. Maybe the mother of all logs on the fire. Should the United States pull out of NATO? Do we even need NATO anymore? 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Scott in Revere. Thanks for holding, Scott, and welcome.
Jeff, I love you in an unsexual way, my friend.
Thank you so much, Scott. Scott, what do you make of all this, my buddy?
All right, I'm going to tell you, Jeff, first, I'm biased because I'm a Catholic, and this little tin pot dictator, what a criminal. Just think, Hunter Biden, the lab, the bioweapon lab, Hunter Biden's bioweapon lab, Charisma, and that's who we should be blaming for all this. Joe Biden. This little tin pot dictator was using Joe Biden just as much as Biden was using him to keep his mouth shut. And Trump's going to say bye-bye to the whole European Union. Bye. We want to see friends. We're done with enemies. No more enemies. We want to see people that think like us, that want freedom, not to hold elections and imprison their own citizens because they're Catholic. That's crazy. That's going to stop. And I'm telling you, this little, he's the next Hitler. If we don't watch it, He's in a shitload, I'm telling you. Bye. Love ya.
Scott, thank you very much for that call. I really, really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. No, look, I'm telling you, I'm warning everybody. Trust me when I tell you this. You look at a guy like Zelensky. He has a Napoleon complex. He does. And just like Napoleon was willing to let France burn, if he wasn't able to rule it, then no one rules it. That's what Zelensky now is willing to do to Ukraine. And this is what Trump is saying over and over again. He goes, look, I'm telling you, you better make a deal now. You keep fighting this war, you guys are going to lose everything. You're going to lose Kiev, your capital. You're going to lose Odessa, which is your big city on the Black Sea. You're going to lose Kharkiv, which is a massive city in the east. He goes, you're going to lose half your country. You're going to lose the crown jewels of your country. The Ukrainian army can no longer fight a war of attrition against the Russians. And Zelensky now is basically saying, I don't give a damn. Keep this war going as long as I don't have to call an election. He's willing now to sacrifice many more of his own people. And I think that's the question that has to be asked of him. How many more Ukrainians are you willing to let die? How many? Because you're not fighting on the front. Your inner circle, the ones that are all stealing that money, they're not sending their boys on the front lines. That I can guarantee you. So how many more poor Ukrainian peasants have to die for your war? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. John in Lowell. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, thank you. Now, Jeff, I have two things. The second one is of most important information. All right, firstly, Jeff, if Zelensky has to pay us back with minerals, and he has to pay back Europe, whose money is he paying Europe back with? Ours, Jeff. And how much of that money is being stolen by corrupt politicians in Europe? Now, Jeff, the other day we were talking about Massachusetts and what's wrong with it. You know how we say liberalism is a mental disorder?
Yes.
Well, Jeff, I did some research. Here it goes. It has been claimed that left-wingers or liberals in the U.S. sense tend to more often suffer from mental illness than right-wingers or conservatives. This potential link was investigated using General Social Survey cumulative cross-sectional database from 72 to 2018. A search of the available variables resulted in 5 items measuring one's own mental illness, e.g., do you have emotional or mental disability? All of these items were weakly associated with left-wing political ideology as measured by self-report, with especially high rates seen for extremely liberal groups. These results mostly held up regressions that adjusted for age, sex, and race. Here it goes. Temporal analysis showed that the relationship between mental illness, happiness, and political ideology have existed in the GSS data since the 1970s and still exist in 2010. Within study meta-analysis of all the results found that extreme liberals have 150% increased rate of mental illness compared to moderates. Here we go. This is what's wrong with Massachusetts, and there's one word that's really key. The finding of increased mental illness among left-wingers is congruent with numerous findings based on related constructs such as positive relationships between conservatives, religiousness, and health in general, Jeff. So it's not a joke. It's not a saying. I had to send this to my cousin who I was trying to debate because you can't debate them. So I sent this to him, and I said, you know what? I can no longer debate with you because, number one, you don't know how to debate. And number two, you have a mental illness. And I don't want to be responsible for your mental well-being. Have a nice day. Jeff, this can be loaded up. Google liberalism, mental disorder.
Oh, no, John, I know. I saw that story. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're completely right. You're absolutely not 100. You're 1,000% correct. The studies, the scientific studies, the psychological studies, the psychiatric studies are irrefutable. There's a mountain of evidence. Liberals, progressives, left-wing extremists, whatever you want to call them, have a much, much, much higher rate of mental illness than moderates, centrists, conservatives, or those on the right. It's not even close. And look at Bill in Sudbury. I'm not trying to be insulting. Listen to him. He's clearly a mentally ill man. Frank in Gloucester, he's another one that's fallen off the face of the earth, clearly a mentally ill man. Ben in North Andover, clearly a mentally ill man. Like, many liberals I've met, I'm telling you, you look at him, you start talking to him, within 2 minutes, you're like, no, there's something wrong with this person. Now, to be fair, it's not just mental illness. They're also personally very miserable. And I think you touched on it, John. Most of them have no religious faith whatsoever. So they're looking for a substitute religion. They're looking for something to fill this emptiness within them, to give them purpose, to give them meaning. To me, that's my explanation. That's my theory for the radical environmentalists. Climate change. Save the planet is doomed. Ban plastic straws. Go around and drive an electric toy car. The earth has a fever, and this belief that the end is nigh and there's an apocalypse, and only the green agenda and the Green New Deal can save the planet. These are people. This is what's called an ersatz religion. This is a substitute religion. And so they need this kind of meaning in their life. Save the world, save the planet. Otherwise, they're personally miserable. And I've never met a liberal who is not utterly miserable. Either mentally ill or utterly miserable. Look at all these radical feminists. Look how bitter they are. Just look at them. But even just look at all, think of every prominent liberal you've ever known. Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, Maura Healey, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, John Kerry. I could just go on and on. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. Just let me keep listing them. They're either mentally ill, obviously mentally ill, or, my God, are they miserable human beings? Absolutely miserable human beings. Always angry, always shouting, yelling, screaming, shrieking. So, John, I agree with you, not 100, 1,000%. And Ukraine was their latest god. Zelensky was their latest god. They didn't, they don't want to put the American flag on their porch outside, but they all put the Ukrainian flag. They all have Ukrainian bumper stickers. And now they're starting to realize they believed in a false Messiah. They believed in a false promised land. That everything they were told was a giant pack of lies. And as you rightly put it, John, follow the money. It's all about the money. And it was our money that they were stealing right underneath our nose. Final word to you, John.
Jeff, it might take you 2 minutes to figure them out. I look in their eyes and I know they're crazy. Once you see crazy, you can't unsee it. Here's the other part. Because they're miserable, Jeff, they want to take away all our fun, which is our rights, not our fun. Our guns, you can't do this, you can't do... Because they're miserable, they want to drag you into their misery, Jeff. That's the dangerous part.
John, God bless you, my friend. As always, phenomenal call. Phenomenal call. 617-266-6868. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff, and thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Andy.
I think we need to recap a little bit in this debate. President Trump was returned to the White House with 312 electoral votes and a popular vote mandate, 78 million at least. Do you remember that old commercial for that brokerage firm, E.F. Hutton? Because I've been around long enough to remember that. And in that commercial, in the boardroom with that big, long table, all the brokers and economic advisors are hotly going back and forth about the in and outs of investment and what's the best strategy forward. And E.F. Hutton's at the head of that table. He's patiently listening. And then finally he speaks up and he says, well, actually, I think, and then dead silence in the room. You could hear a pin drop. And then the narrator of the commercial, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen.
I remember
What
that.
happened?
Yes, Andy. Andy, are you saying when Trump speaks, people listen?
Oh, I'm saying the way the American people spoke in this past presidential election, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us in Kuhner country. What we witnessed was the ultimate E.F. Hutton in American politics. When the American people speak like this, you got to listen. And one of the things I take offense at in this Ukraine situation is just how obtuse the left and the legacy media in the United States in particular has been about that. And the leaders in Europe, too. I mean, just their attitude at the moment towards Trump, they're totally obtuse to the fact of how the American people spoke. The question is, why? Why? Why doesn't it dawn on them, hey, maybe we should start to listen? What's the reason? I'm going to put this log on the fire. To the extent this child sex trafficking has run through Ukraine, I think a lot of people, a lot of powerful people in both the United States and Europe right now are shaking in their boots about the truth of that situation seeing the light of day. And I think that's one of the big things behind their attitude at the moment.
I agree. Andy, I agree. And I would just add to what you're saying. You got the funding of the bioweapons labs all across Ukraine, which we know was CIA. There's no question about that. The Biden crime family was involved. And then you've got the scandal with regarding Doge and what is exposed, USAID, a front for the CIA, funneling billions of dollars. Forget the $200 billion to Ukraine. Billions of dollars to the New York Times, to CNN, to the so-called legacy media, the state-run media. So remember, they're all singing off the same book, the same playbook, or the same choir book. They now are mouthpieces for the deep state. The deep state has made its war against Russia in Ukraine. Ukraine is the center of their money laundering. So, of course, the media is going to defend Ukraine to the hilt. Of course, the media is now going to go on the warpath against Trump for daring to expose Zelensky and call him what he is, which is a corrupt tin pot dictator who now wants to prevent peace because he wants to keep more people dying and more death and destruction. 919 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I'm getting a lot of blowback from, speaking of mental illness, crazy moonbats, who are literally, they're like, we love it that Russian soldiers are dying. We want more Russian soldiers to die. We don't want this war to end. The only good Russian is a dead Russian. Okay, you feel like that? Then why don't you go pick up a gun and fight in Ukraine? You phony, you fraud, you. But of course you won't do that. Well, I'm not talking about Russian soldiers. How about the millions of Ukrainian men, women, children who have been killed in this war, maimed, crippled in this war, displaced in this war? What about them? What about all the ethnic Russian civilians slaughtered, crippled, maimed, displaced as refugees. And you love this war? You want it to continue? For what? 6 more months? Another year? 2 years? 3 years? 4 years? 5 years? So this thing is just going to go on and on and on? So we're not going to have millions, but tens of millions dead? I'm sorry. You liberals disgust me. I'm sorry. You're sick. You are seriously sick. You need medical help. I'm telling you, John and Lowell was right. You truly have a psychological, psychiatric problem. Now, if we stop the war now, we can end the killing, end the death, end the destruction. And what does Putin get? What? The Donbass? He doesn't get the heart and soul, the cradle of Ukraine. Most of Ukraine will emerge independent and free from Russian control and domination. He doesn't get, look, Putin wants Kiev. He won't get it. He wants Kharkiv. He won't get it. He wants Kherson. He won't get it. He wants Odessa. He won't get it. So rather than having a peace deal that leaves Ukraine fundamentally intact, with the ability now to join the EU, to pursue the West, to become a true Ukrainian nation and sovereign state, and Putin gets his buffer in eastern Ukraine, everybody gets a little something, and the killing and the slaughter ends. No, you scumbags want this to continue. Well, I'll tell you what, you love the Donetsk and Luhansk so much. By the way, you couldn't even find it on a map. You can't even name me one town in those regions in eastern Ukraine that are being contested. Pick up a gun, tough guy, and go fight in eastern Ukraine. But you won't, you phony, you fraud, you. And by the way, who taught you to hate the Russians so much? That's another thing. This Russophobia that you see among the liberals, among the left, among the Democrats, among the media. You know, I'm no fan of Vladimir Putin, as you well know. But, you know, Russians are people too. They're not subhuman scum. But, you know, they get their jollies out of seeing Russian grandmothers shot in the head. Like that's what turns them on now. So, honestly, look, we've had 3 years. 3 years. Ukraine isn't winning. Ukraine is losing. And what Trump is saying, and he's the only sane guy in the room, he's saying, you better take this deal now. Because you keep fighting for another 6 months, you're going to have lost a lot more territory. This is not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And you're going to have a lot more dead. A lot more Ukrainian mothers are going to be mourning the deaths of their boys, of their sons. So it's not you that's going to die. It's not your son or daughter that's going to die. So it's easy. Flap your mouth and say, fight to the last Ukrainian. No, you go fight. Tough guy. War is ugly. It's ugly. And it should be avoided. And you only resort to war if it's the last possible option. And even then, when you have a chance to end the war, you end it. Instead, these sick globalists, these sick liberals, have been so indoctrinated to hate Vladimir Putin that they are literally now willing to risk World War III. Over what? Over what? Now, I'm telling you, it's door 1 or it's door 2. There's only 2 options. Either you take Trump's peace initiative and you end this senseless slaughter, because this is slaughter on a scale of World War I. This is trench warfare. And you end this, and you end this nightmare before, frankly, it gets us all killed. Or it's going to be door two. And door two is Trump walks away. He just walks away, and there's no money sent to Ukraine from the United States. Now, if you want Ukraine, look, it's up to the Ukrainians. I really mean this. You guys want to keep fighting, fight. No one's going to stop you. If the Europeans are willing to pony up the money, fine. But now Europe is going to be responsible, not us. Not us. So, either you take peace now and have peace with some kind of honor, or you keep fighting into the maelstrom, into the breach, into the abyss. Give peace a chance. For the sake of the Ukrainians, for the sake of the Russians, for the sake of the dead, for the sake of the civilians, for the sake of the peace of the world. RKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, this is an absolutely brilliant text from 512. Jeff, these mentally ill progressives / liberals even suspend their devotion to the environment when it comes to Ukraine. The environmental devastation caused by this war has been incalculable. Millions of acres, millions of the most fertile and productive farmland are now dead, ruined forever, along with soldiers on both sides. These same liberals have been trained to hate Putin and the Russians just as they have been trained to hate Trump and those who support him. Bingo. It's true, really. It's completely true. Now, I just want to play a cut, and this shows you how bought and paid for our media has become. You can listen to CNN at any given moment, any given hour, any given day, and they will either call Trump a dictator or Musk a dictator. Okay, usually multiple times every hour. Or Hitler, or a Nazi, or you name it, a white supremacist, whatever. But God forbid, Trump should actually call Zelensky for what he is, a corrupt dictator who's imposed martial law and banned all political opposition. Listen now to Fake Tapper on This is CNN. You want to know what USAID buys you? You want to know what state-run media sounds like? This is what state-run media sounds like. You can call the American president a dictator. You can call Elon Musk a dictator. You can call Republicans and Trump supporters Nazis, fascists, and Hitler lovers. But don't you dare criticize little midget man. That's the CIA's boy in Kiev, and we protect our own. Roll cut 18, Mike.
This morning, President Trump sending shockwaves throughout Europe when he called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a, quote, dictator, parroting Russian talking points. This comes on the heels of President Trump falsely accusing Ukraine of starting the war and invasion of Ukraine and excluding Ukraine from the peace talks held in Saudi Arabia earlier this week between Russia and the United States. This is more than just upending the normal way of doing things. This is more than him just breaking with tradition. He's breaking with facts. He's breaking with truth. And in some ways, he's breaking with basic decency, just as we saw the president look at these images from January 6th and decide ultimately that the people beating up the cops are patriots and the FBI agents and prosecutors who went after the cop beaters, they were the bad guys. The president is once again falsely casting Ukraine, the victim of an aggressive and bloody territorial seizure, as the aggressor.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Huh? That's what state-run media gets you. Okay, it's breaking. You need to be aware of it. You want to know what that tin pot dictator in Kiev just did? It's now breaking. Zelensky apparently, I'm just going now by reports that are surfacing on social media. Zelensky now apparently has blocked access to President Trump's social media platform, Truth Social, across all of Ukraine. So he's now preventing the Ukrainian people from being able to read or see for themselves what President Trump is saying on Truth Social as he criticizes Zelensky and the corruption in Ukraine, which is exactly proving Trump's point. So now, listen to this. The president of Ukraine, the dictator of Ukraine, the strongman of Ukraine, is now censoring President Trump in Ukraine so that the Ukrainian people can't read or see what Trump is writing about their own country? He's censoring Trump? After all of the money we've given that piece of you-know-what? I got to be very careful because I don't want to swear. That POS? Little midget man? And now this guy has the gall to censor President Trump? Whoa. Yeah, we don't know if this is true, okay? It's breaking on social media. I haven't seen a media report confirming yet. So, if this is true, I want to underline the word if. But if this is true, Trump needs to tell him to F off. That's it, F off. I'm telling you, that's it, blank off. Okay, blank off, bye, we're done, bye, have a nice life, bye. 617-266-6868 is the number. If this is true, that is the naked act of a tyrant and of a dictator. It makes Trump's point crystal clear. And it shows you why Zelensky's petrified of an election. He can't face his own people. He can't even face criticism of the corruption in his own regime. And this is the guy the Democrats and the media are saying we should glorify? Like Jake Tapper? Oh, some talking points. Oh, how dare he criticize Zelensky? How dare? Ukraine just lost the war. If this is true, I want to underline that, they have now so alienated Trump and they have so alienated the American people, Ukraine, this idiot just shot Ukraine right in the foot. I'm telling you, this idiot now is going to cost Ukraine the war. Mark my words. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? Max in Reading. Thanks for holding, Max, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. What's up?
Hi, Max.
Hi.
I'm good. How are you, Max?
So, back in 22, I think. Personally, Trump's in a tough spot because Zelensky, he can't go back to his people after the whole everything that happened. So Trump's going to have to put together some kind of deal, like I don't know, like whatever. Russia gets to keep whatever they got, but Ukraine can now be part of NATO. And then Zelensky can go back and you say, well, look, Trump, he strong-armed me. I couldn't do anything. And then, stuff like that.
No, I agree. Look, Max, I think it's very clear. I think Trump, and I say this with all due respect, look, first of all, he had a mandate to end the war. He won the election. One of his key promises was he was going to end the war. I think he's got a good heart. And I know this for a fact. Trump cannot stand to see suffering children. By the way, I'm the same. I can't even watch a movie now. Ever since I adopted my two kids, I don't know why, I can't stand to see children abducted, kidnapped, like in a movie or, whatever. Never mind abused or mistreated. I can't. I'm telling you, I can't. So he sees, I don't want to sound like a liberal, but really, he sees these orphan children. He sees these suffering children. He sees these babushkas, these Ukrainian old ladies crying. He sees these destroyed cities. He sees all of these civilians dead, all of them maimed, crippled, or refugees. And he's like, we've got to end this. For God's sake, we've got to end it. Enough. Okay? Enough. Both sides. Enough. And he really thought, you know, hey, look, the tough nut was Putin. And he worked Putin hard, and he got Putin to basically say, okay, I'll make a deal. So he thought if there's one side to this that is going to really want the war to end, it'll obviously be the Ukrainians. Right, Max? I mean, it just makes sense. They're the ones who've suffered the most. It's not even close. And he gets treated like this? And now it's gotten to the point, and you're completely right, no matter what Trump does, now he's in a no-win position. If if there is a peace deal, Zelensky will turn around and say, well, he imposed it on us. He forced it on us. If there is no peace deal, they're going to say, aha, you see, he couldn't deliver. So, my advice now to Trump is very simple. No more arguing, no more fighting, no more back and forth with this grifter, this little thief. And that's what he is. This little con man. Okay, this little midget man. Say, you know what? Okay, Volodymyr. Okay, Volodymyr. Hey, tough guy. You want to keep fighting? No problem. Bye. Bye. And we're going to put sanctions on Ukraine. The $250 billion, we want it back. You're giving the money back to Europe? We want the money back to us. That's it. You're not going to get a single penny from us anymore. Pay back the money. Pay back the money. That's all. And we wish you the best. I think it's time now for Trump to play hardball. Because this shyster, you want to talk about knifing people? This shyster now has just knifed not just Trump, but the American people right in the back. This is the thanks we get, the liberal bull. Okay, I just want to stress again, because we've been getting a lot of text messages, a lot of emails on this. We don't know if that's true. Generally, I don't report rumors on social media, but there were a couple of people that were reporting on it that I tend to trust. Doesn't mean they're always right, but they have a fairly good reputation. So, again, they're still just rumors. But if they're true, I think it'll be a fundamental game changer. So the rumor is that Zelensky has ordered the Ukrainian social media platforms to not have access anymore to Trump's posts on Truth Social. So basically, if it's true, again, I want to underline that, Zelensky may be now trying to censor Trump in Ukraine. So we'll find out if that story is true or not in the next couple of hours. So far, no media outlet has corroborated it, but we're definitely going to keep an eye. 617-266-6868 is the number. I just want one text, which I think is really, really very good. Jeff, by the way, from 617. Jeff, I think stupid Zelensky made the mistake of thinking he was still dealing with the Biden administration. This is probably how he talked to Joe to get what he wanted. You know, I agree with 617. He was so used to kicking Biden around because he was blackmailing and extorting him that he thought, like, he can just treat Trump the same way. And now he's starting to realize, no. Trump is the boss. And he's not Joe Biden. And I think Zelensky Zelensky is blowing it. Let's just put it this way. And he may be blowing it not just for himself. I think he may be blowing it for the Ukrainian people. Okay, Rand Paul went on X, and this is what he wrote on X. A few people may have noticed that I resisted an enthusiastic endorsement of Donald Trump during the election. But now I am amazed by the Trump cabinet, many of whom I would have picked. And then Rand Paul continues, I love his message to the Ukrainian warmongers and along with his Doge initiative. So Rand Paul, who was quite lukewarm about Trump, now says he's exceeding all my expectations. Okay, let me just go one more. This is from 917. Jeff, Zelensky is an obnoxious character. And if I had to guess, his meeting with J.D. Vance in Munich last week probably sealed his fate. He lightly ignored the fact that Biden was gone and carried on as usual. Recalcitrant, demanding, obstinate, and grating. And that was probably the moment they decided. Hold on, let me just put that in there. Hold on. That was probably the moment they decided he wasn't the right person to deal with. And I agree. I think J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio came back after meeting with Zelensky and said, this guy's a complete scumbag. He thinks he owns us because he owned Biden, and he thinks that we're there to basically do his will. And he doesn't seem to get it. This is supposed to be a two-way relationship. And that's when they said, you know what? Have this tin pot dictator call an election. Let's see if he has any democratic legitimacy whatsoever. And now Zelensky is freaking out, as are his allies in the media. Lorenzo in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Lorenzo, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Lorenzo.
You know, you've been 100% right about everything. I'm going to, and it aggravated, it was when you were talking about the scumbags mailing in. Oh, that was really going up my, the wrong way. But here's the deal for those losers, scumbags. I want them to listen to this, okay? I have a couple Ukrainian friends that actually went over there to fight, okay? And when they went over there, and as they were over there, they realized how corrupt it was, okay? And they couldn't get out because they had they wouldn't let them out of the thing. They had to go into Romania to sneak out to get back into this country, okay? Jeff, the people know that this guy is corrupt. And here's another thing, Jeff. My wife works, one of her best friends is Russian. Her mother married a Ukrainian guy, okay? Her siblings are Ukraine and Russia. They are from that part of Ukraine. And they say that all relatives, families are breaking up over this because they're so close. There's cousins on the Russian side, on the Ukrainian side. This is how sadistic this guy is and how corrupt our CIA is because they just want to make money, Jeff. Okay? They're sick people. And here's the other thing, Jeff. There's still money in England, okay? Because the money's clean in England before it comes here. That's the reason why they have this rat, Zelensky, going out and pulling the stunts he's pulling because they're trying to figure out how to get the money in.
Well, he needs the gravy train to continue. You're absolutely dead on, Lorenzo. Absolutely dead on. And he's willing to sacrifice millions more of his own people to keep lining his pockets. I mean, that's the kind of scumbag we're dealing with. And I think Trump now has made a decision. I'm done with him. And I'm telling you, good for Trump. Lorenzo, thank you. Let's squeeze one more in. Mike, squeeze one more in. Mike? We don't have time to squeeze one more in. Are you kidding me, Mike? Jeez. Boy, you really love the power there, Mike. You know, Mike, I'm thinking maybe you and Zelensky, you guys could get along pretty good there, Mike. I'm just saying. You know, you may, I don't know, are you a relative of Zelensky, Mike?